The fight to defund Planned Parenthood continues not only at the federal level, but at the state levels as well. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is urging a federal appeals court to overturn an order halting the state from cutting Medicaid dollars to Planned Parenthood. Paxton accuses the abortion giant of breaches of medical and ethical standards based on the undercover Planned Parenthood videos. The videos claim to show the nation's largest abortion provider profiting from sales of aborted baby tissue for medical research. Last December, Texas's Health and Human Services Inspector General removed Planned Parenthood from the state's Medicaid program. Planned Parenthood receives over $3 million in state Medicaid funding annually. Joining us now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Attorney General, you are accusing Planned Parenthood of breaches of medical and ethical standards. Can you specify what you mean by that claim?
Yeah, it's pretty unusual that the state of Texas would go to this lengths to defund something like a provider like this, but because of what you're talking about, the violation of both medical and ethical standards, we're in the process of doing that. We're doing it because we have doctors who are performing abortions, but they're also doing research on fetal tissue, which is unethical and probably a violation of law. We have Planned Parenthood. We know that they lied to the Texas Rangers when they were dealing with talking about their study with Baylor Medicine. And we also know that they've changed procedures in doing abortions to make themselves, allow themselves to get better fetal tissue to do their research. And so all of those are issues that we're concerned about. All of those are issues that we believe are at least ethically wrong, and potentially, you know, there may be a violation of law. So that's why the state of Texas is interested in this, and that's why we're focused on ending their Medicaid funding.
Those breaches that you mentioned would be based on those undercover Planned Parenthood videos. So what do you say to people who claim the undercover videos are heavily edited and therefore can't prove any wrongdoing from Planned Parenthood?
Well, I disagree with them. This is one of the very first times, it may be the first time that we've actually had video footage that we're going to be able to use in court. So this is important evidence. You know, if they can show that they were somehow changed and altered, good for them. But I don't think they're going to find that that is true. And I think ultimately we're going to be successful because we do have that footage of exactly what they said and what they meant to do.
What kind of difference, Attorney General, are you hoping to make by blocking Medicaid funding from going to Planned Parenthood? How significant are Medicaid dollars to this abortion giant?
Well, it's millions of dollars, so it's going to have a dramatic impact. And obviously, our goal here is to stop providers from doing this type of activity where they're operating in violation of both ethical and potentially legal standards. So, you know, we have a significant interest in this because these are our dollars, these are taxpayer dollars going to fund this. And given what we know from these films, it's a travesty what's going on.
How has defunding Planned Parenthood impacted women's health in your state so far? Has there been a health crisis?
No, that's just inaccurate. Of course, that's a narrative you're going to hear from the other side, but the reality is all of the major metropolitan markets still have providers that are doing abortions. And so the reality is it hasn't really affected access at all. And so that's just a false narrative that is being pushed by the other side. Ultimately, this isn't about that. This is about, are they acting unethically and in violation of law?
Do you believe, Attorney General, this is something a majority of Texans want to see happen? What role do states' rights play in the greater pro-life battle?
Well, look, this is our money. This is taxpayer dollars. You know, people have trouble funding this stuff anyway, but particularly if they're going to violate ethical and medical standards. And look, people can decide for themselves as they watch these videos. They're going to see the truth. It's hard to hide the truth when it's on film and in front of the world to see.
Texas really is leading the nation in defunding Planned Parenthood. What do you want to say to other state attorney generals considering similar action? And are you hoping to see any action taken by U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions?
Look, I think other states should consider this if they find that they have evidence of something similar. We certainly were fortunate to get these tapes. So if these tapes exist for other states, I think they ought to consider doing the same thing we're doing. And ultimately, you know, I don't have much control over what happens at the federal level, but I certainly think the federal people should look at this, including Jeff Sessions. We got some of our information from a House Select Committee that provided some of this information, and so we know that some of this information is available to the federal government as well.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it on this important topic.
To continue this discussion, we are joined in our D.C. studio by this week's expert panel. Dr. Michael New is an associate scholar with the Charlotte Lozier Institute, and Jeanne Mancini is president of the March for Life. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Jeanne, first off, I want to get your reaction to what we just heard Ken Paxton tell us.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm just so grateful for the Attorney General and what they're doing in Texas. He mentioned the report, of course, about, the Center for Medical Progress's videos. And, it's been proven by at least one forensic analysis that I'm aware of, Coal Fire, which is a really mainstream group that does a lot of this kind of work. And they showed that those videos were not manipulated. They were not spliced. They were not cut in any kind of way, shape, or form. So it's unfortunate that Planned Parenthood keeps repeating that talking point, but it's totally erroneous.
Michael, what do you make of the strategy of how Texas is defunding Planned Parenthood?
I think pro-lifers should really appreciate and applaud the work that Texas is doing. Since the early 1990s, the pro-life movement's really placed a lot of emphasis on doing more things at the state level. That's paid a lot of dividends. We've seen more states pass parental involvement laws, more states pass informed consent laws, more states banning abortion after 20 weeks. Since the early 90s, the number of abortions has been fallen by about 25%, and that state-level strategy is an important reason why.
Michael, you're a numbers guy, an economics professor. A lot of mainstream media is saying there is a health crisis going on in Texas right now, but what do the statistics tell us?
Well, the narrative that there is a public health crisis is absolutely false. In some cases, media outlets have literally made things up. In other cases, they've taken studies out of context. But here are the facts, and the facts are that most public health trends in Texas are very positive. Abortions are down by over 20% since 2011. Abortions performed on minors are down by over 40%. The minor birth rate's down by 20%. So again, these are all very positive public health trends that the mainstream media is just not reporting.
Jeanne, we heard Ken Paxton say he hopes the federal government and Jeff Sessions does take more action when it comes to defunding Planned Parenthood. Where are we on the federal front when it comes to this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the House Select Committee looked at some of these terrible things that we saw from the Center for Medical Progress videos, where we're seeing harvesting of little hearts, little lungs, little livers. It's so hard, to take it all in. And they came up with, I believe, 11 counts of what they thought were really, problems. And then the Senate committee did the same, and they came up with, I think, 7 counts. And so both of those went to the Department of Justice. And so the role of the Justice Department now is to look into this. To further kind of amplify the importance of this, the March for Life, joining with other pro-life leaders, sent a letter to the Department of Justice about 3 months ago, asking the Attorney General to take a look at this. Because, look, it's time for Planned Parenthood to be defunded.
Right, we've seen these videos, we've had these committees and these hearings. A big question on a lot of pro-lifers' lips right now, where it's August, we're more than 200 days into this administration. When is Planned Parenthood going to be defunded? As people who are so active in the pro-life movement, can you respond to that big, major question right now?
Well, the defunding of Planned Parenthood has been kind of wrapped into the broader debate about reforming health care. And that's a complicated issue where there's, even though there's probably consensus among a lot of Republicans to defund Planned Parenthood, there's less of a consensus about how to reform health care. So I think that the issue is still alive. It's a good chance Congress will revisit the whole health care issue sometime in the future. And pro-lifers should continue to contact congressmen, senators, let them know this is a priority, and hopefully we will see some action in the near future.
Jeanne?
I agree. And some basic points about Planned Parenthood that's so important for public opinion is, one, they're our nation's largest abortion provider. They do over 320,000 abortions every year, and it's horrific to realize that. 2, they're not a benevolent healthcare organization. They're extremely politically involved. They put millions of dollars into this past election. And in fact, their current president said that she wanted to make the organization the largest kick-butt political organization out there, and even was a surrogate for Hillary Clinton in the campaign. And then last, we can't forget what we're talking about here, that they harvested little hearts, little lungs, little livers. They didn't get the mother's permission. They didn't do this legally. So it's really important that we continue to spread the word about that so that public opinion can ultimately influence our legislators as well.
Absolutely. Every day that passes matters. Thank you both for being here.